Welcome to a Partnership for National Unity press conference for April 27th, 2023. Today, let me introduce my panel. From the right. There is none other than Ms. Dawn Hastings Williams, Member of Parliament. To her right, Mr. Sherwin Holder, Member of Parliament. To his right, Mr. Vincroy Jordan, Member of Parliament. To his right, Ms. Amantha Walton Desir, Member of Parliament, and Mr. Ganesh Maipal, Member of Parliament. Welcome. Today's press statement will be read by Mr. Sherwin Holder.
Thank you. Thank you, Shanika. Good morning to you members of the media and the listening public. Without an investigation into the acts of electoral fraud by the PPP, local government elections cannot proceed. On nominations day for the 2023 local government elections, the contesting parties submitted their lists of candidates for the various local authority areas across the country. Since then, most Guyanese have learned from the evidence we've shown that the submissions of the People's Progressive Party contain numerous instances of forgery, fakery, impersonation, and blatant electoral fraudulent acts. These blatant acts of fraud by the PPP amount to an orchestrated attempt to rig the 2023 local government elections. They expose the PPP's desperation and waning popularity among the Guyanese people. Worse, they are high criminal acts that must be punished by the full force of the law. From the documented evidence we have revealed to the public, the PPP's fraudulent acts include 1. Fake signatures, where one PPP agent signs for every nominator. 2. Selecting nominators without their knowledge and consent and forging their signatures. 3. Signing on behalf of nominators who are either dead or overseas. 4. Signing on behalf of persons who normally use their thumbprints. 5. Intimidating nominators to remove their names from the APNU lists. 6. Coercing and threatening persons to support the PPP or otherwise lose their jobs and handouts. And 7. Compelling 10-day workers to participate in the PPP political activities. Many of the affected persons have written to or have directly approached GCOM regional offices and the Guyana Police Force to lodge complaints. On our part, the APNU has written the Commissioner of Police to request a meeting to present the evidence and to demand that the police take action against the fraudsters and their controllers at Freedom House. We will make a copy of the letter available after this press conference. The APNU has noted that GCOM is suggesting that they cannot investigate the illegalities that the PPP is involved in. It is opposite to note that the responsibility for ensuring free and fair elections lies squarely at the feet of GCOM. It is therefore a dereliction of duty on GCOM's part if it fails to engage the Guyana police force to take legal action against the perpetrators of electoral fraud. By GCOM's actions, the credibility of local government elections 2023 is in question and should not proceed until an investigation is done into the irregularities involving the PPP and its activists. It must be noted here that Justice Claudette Singh has removed all pretensions of being independent and interested in free and fair elections. It should be evident to all that she is a pawn of the People's Progressive Party and can never deliver free, fair, and credible elections. She has made herself an enemy of fair play and democracy, and therefore is unsuited to be chairman of GCOM. She should do the decent thing and resign. Despite the overwhelming evidence, we have noted the silence from the so-called guardians of democracy. We have noted the silence from several of the main media houses. We have noted the silence from civil society. We have noted the silence from the diplomatic community. We call on all of these entities to unbury their heads from the sand, to stop being convenient advocates of free and fair elections, and to join the people of Guyana in demanding that GCOM and the Guyana Police Force treat with necessary urgency and seriousness the blatant attempt by the People's Progressive Party to rig the 2020 local government elections. Let it be known that the APNU will not allow this matter to wane with time. We will not allow our focus to be distracted. Our outrage will not be calmed. We will not allow the PPP in cahoots with its agents in GCOM to rig and to steal the 2020 local government elections. We will not allow the will of the Guyanese people to be perverted by the PPP. I say enough is enough. These acts of electoral fraud by the People's Progressive Party further confirm what we have been saying since the last general elections in 2020. As we have said before, the People's Progressive Party rigs elections. The People's Progressive Party has no interest in free and fair elections. They have no interest in local government. The PPP is disdainful and dismissive of the collective will and concerns of the Guyanese people. The People's Progressive Party is hell-bent on total domination and control, regardless of the cost to the nation. It is now clearer than ever that our demands for a clean voters list and voting day biometrics is justified and vindicated. Without credible and acceptable elections, our country will plunge into social and political instability and conflict. We therefore call on all Guyanese, civil society, and friends of the country to join the effort to rescue the country from this impending gloom and doom. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will now accept questions on the press statement. I see the hand of Mr. Jevon Vickery.
Good morning, everyone. Excuse me, good morning. I have a question. Can you say to me, just with regards to the statement, can you say to me, one, whether or not the party had written an official complaint to GCOM? That's one, an official complaint. That's one question. Two, who was the complaint delivered to? And three, when? Because according to Justice Singh yesterday, apart from what she saw on social media, nothing wasn't given to her or the commission as a formal complaint to GCOM. Can you provide those details, please?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Now, listen to me. The complaints have been widespread all across this country. The ROs in the various local authority areas have those complaints. Persons have visited GCOM. Persons would have written to GCOM to have their names removed. Persons would have visited the police and make reports. They have taken to social media as well. And so GCOM is the written complaints are there with GCOM. The ROs are creatures of GCOM. Claudette Singh cannot and should not be saying it is disingenuous for her to be saying that she doesn't know about these complaints. They're lodged at the RO's office. We're also dealing with these complaints at the commission level. So it is quite disingenuous to hear that the chairman of GCOM is making the claim that there is no evidence and that she's only seeing these issues on social media. That is not acceptable. We've said in our statement that she is in cahoots with the People's Progressive Party, and from the statements, I've not seen those statements being made by her, but I will take it that she has made the statement and take it from you, and so it further justifies what we are saying here today, that Claudette Singh is not fit to lead GCOM and that she should resign.
Just for clarity, so yes, you're saying that there were several reports made from ROs and other persons, but the party APNU, was any request or complaint made to GCOM from APNU to GCOM with regards to the 4 signatures that you're claiming were found within several lists?
May I just say, Mr. Vickery, that this matter has been brought to the attention of the commission. We do have commissioners who sit on the commission, and so this matter is properly before them. It is ridiculous for the chairman to say what she has said. The fact that the CEO has said in the public space that they cannot pronounce on these allegations of fraud means that they are aware. So our commissioners have brought it to their attention, and they are very well aware of it. So that is just Claudette Singh engaging in being evasive and not wanting to deal frontally with these issues of fraud. So it's properly before them. They are aware.
All right, I see the hand of Ms. Tamika Garnett. Ms. Garnett?
Good morning, everyone. Tamika Garnett from the Guyana Chronicle. Mr. Northam had said that the PPP was telling the world that we couldn't find candidates here and we couldn't find the candidates. But you guys have found candidates in every NEC in the country, except in Region 9, where you had some problems. For clarity, does that mean that APNU is contesting in all 610 constituencies in all 80 LAAs?
Thank you, Ms. Garnett. I will repeat.
I have another question after this.
Okay. We are contesting in practically all the local authority areas, except those that you would have mentioned. There are a few that we have problems with, but we are contesting in all the local authority areas. You see, here is the thing. The PNC is not interested in total domination control. We are working with groups in several areas. We've worked with individuals. We believe in local people being involved in the management of their own affairs. That has long been the position of the party. But to answer your question formally, we are contesting in practically all the local authority areas. We have to obviously await for GCOM to, given all the fraud and all that we've seen for the past few days, we have to await GCOM's confirmation to, as it relates to the political parties that are contesting where, what has been approved by GCOM. But as far as we're concerned, we are contesting in practically all the local authority areas, except for those which we encountered some difficulties, some issues.
Can you say any specifics on the local authority areas where you encountered issues and say what were the issues that were encountered?
No, at this time we're dealing with it at the GCOM level, and so we wouldn't want to make any pronouncements at this time. We await the outcome of GCOM.
During the period after nominations day, the arrows would have to reach out back to the political parties to say defects that were found. Can you say if defects were found on the APNU list and if you were able to address the defects in time?
There are always minor defects in any elections. For example, in region number 2, and I dealt with it, you had ROs refusing to accept our list because of frivolous thing like a picture is not clear. And I made it very clear to those ROs that if the pictures are not clear of our candidates, then that is our problem. And so they're not empowered by law to reject our list due to something like that. So there are always little issues here and there, but the fraud that we would have seen out of the PPP is over and beyond. And so GCOM must deal with that. That is what we're focusing on here today.
All right.
For instance, mentioning that they also had issues with their names being included on some of the APNU lists. Was the party made aware of any of this, and has the party perhaps reached out to any of the persons who had concerns about their name being included on APNU's list when they did not consent to such?
We're not aware of that. We're not aware of that. What we learned from the social media, from the public, is that the People's Progressive Party is going around offering monies to persons to take their names off of our list, but we're not officially aware of that.
All right. I see the hand of Mr. Adam Harris.
Yes, good morning, comrades. Now, Ms. Walton, this here said the matter was probably put before GCOM by way of the commissioners. Amanza, are you in a position to say what was GCOM's reaction to the commissioners when they brought this to their attention of GCOM? And could you say whether at that stage GCOM certainly acknowledged the reports that were taken to them by the commissioners? And I'm not worried about the people who went into GCOM with the paper, because anything can happen. You said. The commissioners brought it to GCOM properly. Was there a reaction?
I think we can gather from the statement that the CEO would have made that they considered it and that they have come to the conclusion that they cannot do anything about the fraudulent act. I mean, this is information in the public space. And so here we are today hearing from GCOM that despite widespread fraud, despite people complaining to them and our commissioners bringing to their attention the acts of fraud, you have them saying they can't do anything about it. Adam, I think we need to remember that this is a very iterative process. There is a continuous communication between the ROs, the scrutineers, our chief scrutineers. They are in constant communication. So this is a very iterative process. But we are very unhappy with what we are hearing so far from GCOM and them saying, and particularly in the public space, that they can do nothing about the fraud. There seems to be in existence in GCOM some kind of disconnect, because you're hearing the chairperson say she's not aware. You're hearing the CEO says we know, but we can't do anything about it. So it appears to me that GCOM needs to get its act in order. They're the constitutional body responsible for free, fair, and transparent elections. And it appears to me as though their house is not in order. And so they have to get it in order forthwith.
A quick follow-up, please. Sorry, Dennis. Reports were made to the police. Has there been any reaction of the police to these reports, or were they just taken, as has happened in so many cases, and just filed away?
Yes, Mr. Adam, thank you for the question. I know for a fact several reports were made to the police, to be specific, that at Fort Wellington Police Station and the Welded Police Station. In addition, the leader, as would have been read in the statement, wrote to the police commissioner asking for time to avail himself so that we can present our evidence. Since the reports were made to the police, we have not received any word from the police at this time, and they have not followed up in any way with regards to those reports. And we still have more reports, or I should say persons who are waiting their documentation from GCOM. That is, they would have submitted their letters and they await the names to be taken off of the list and then to go to the police and make those reports. And so the conclusion to it is that the police has not done anything as yet.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chabral?
Reference was made in one of the remarks that the MAC person for GCOM. Can you say what format this was provided to GCOM, whether it was individual complaints or just a broad expression of concern, as opposed to individual complaints from persons who were objecting to their names, whether as candidates or nominators?
I believe these complaints would have been made to GCOM as they became available. Remember, you have a time period within which you can rectify all of these anomalies, etc. And so I have to repeat that it is an iterative process, that the deadline, I think, is the 26th of April. And so as these matters have arisen, they have been brought before the commission by our officials. So, you know, it continues to happen. As a matter comes up, it comes to the attention of the commission, and certainly the CEO. We can say for a fact that our chief scrutineer is in daily contact, hourly contact almost, with GCOM, bringing to their attention all of these anomalies that we have been uncovering.
When you say GCOM Council, you're referring to the administrative arm of GCOM or the 7-member body?
Sorry, you broke up there, Mr. Chabral.
No, I was asking when you say GCOM, are you referring to the secretariat or the 7-member body?
We are referring to both. We are referring to both. Of course, you appreciated GCOM will deliberate on it when they meet, as in the commission. But of course, certainly the administrative arm is in contact with us hourly as we seek to bring these complaints to their attention.
And can you say how many complaints have been filed so far? I know you said it's an iterative process, but so far, have you got any numbers you can provide to us? And how many of those numbers have been resolved by way of providing new names or so on?
We will know that, I think, later today. But certainly the complaints that you have been seeing are in the hundreds in terms of from all of the regions. You have people reaching out to say, I am in Trinidad, for example. How is it that I would have signed the form? You have people in Region 10 saying, look, we signed the form, but we were told that it was for house lots. We never agreed to elections. You have people who, as we now know, and the VP has apologized, who are deceased but signed the forms. So certainly this is not an isolated problem. It is a problem that we have identified in every administrative region, in every local authority. And it is certainly a feature of the PPPC's participation in this process. So we will know definitively, I think later on in the day, just how many complaints have been resolved. That is not to say that that is the end of the matter, because forging somebody's signature, the last we checked, was a criminal offense. And so a JP as well, swearing that this person appeared and they are who they say they are when they weren't and they did not, is an offense as well. So let's not think that because administratively these issues might have been rectified, that a crime has not been committed. We want to make that very, very clear.
Mr. Shabal, just a follow-up also to your question. One must understand that GCOM has returning officers throughout the length and breadth of this country at every local authority area. Those ROs are placed there to manage the affairs of that local authority area. For example, let me help you. In Woodlands, Bel Air in Region 5, the PPP submitted a list, and immediately that list was rejected by the RO. That RO would then have to report to the Chief Elections Officer what happened throughout nominations day. The Chief Elections Officer would then have to report to the Commission what happened throughout nominations day. And so they're aware that from nominations day to the point of reports, be it fraud, be it those persons who did and all the others, it happened. I want you to understand this clearly also, that the list that was rejected, it was not the APNU that said that this list has forged signatures. It was GCOM's RO who understood and saw from the document that all the signatures were the same. The T's are the same, the S's, the E's, everything is the same. And she immediately rejected the list. And so at that point, it tells me, and one should understand, that GCOM is fully aware through its returning officer that fraud has taken place. And GCOM is fully aware through its returning officer that at this particular location, a list was rejected and that the PPP would now have to go back to get this list corrected. And so that should help persons to understand that the information that you're seeking and that GCOM is now saying that they are not aware of, they get it on a daily basis. And as a matter of fact, up until yesterday, when was it the closure, the 26th, GCOM was processing lists and so on with people who had their names taken off. For example, a number of names were taken off from lists across Region 5, and the PPP were the candidates, the representative of the list, so to speak, they were informed that these names were removed, and persons who went to GCOM were given the assurance that their names were removed, and that process ended last evening, and the finality to it, as Comrade Amanza would have mentioned, is today we will know what is the position of those lists that are now accepted by GCOM.
And if I can add, Mr. Shabral, this is quite similar to what happened in 2020. In 2020, GCOM staff, the ROs, would have accepted that there were dead persons who appeared to have been have voted. You would have had persons who were clearly out of the jurisdiction and their names appeared to have been voted. We would have brought, other than GCOM themselves acknowledging it at the RO level, we would have forwarded the evidence to the commission, and that those evidence, for example, for those persons who would have appeared to have voted but they were overseas, that evidence was sent to the Chief Immigration Officer, who was the Commissioner of Police, and he would have confirmed you would have confirmed many of those names. But GCOM refused to act on it. The chairperson refused to act on it. So it's a similar situation now. They have the evidence of fraud, but now they go out there to say that they don't. And they're actively refusing to act on it.
You know, it brings me to another point. With GCOM saying that they don't have the evidence, the very list that I mentioned earlier at Woodlands Bel Air, and this is a typical example across the country we can look at. At Woodlands Bel Air, a name that was in the social media space for quite some time, Miss Cheryl Jacob, the woman who is deceased. Her name was signed on the first list, and I want the public to get this very clearly. Her name was signed on the first list. Let us take, for argument's sake, that this woman signed the list, although the daughter said very clearly that she did not. But let us take, for argument's sake, when GCOM asked the representative of the list to fix this list, which has signatures that all look alike, they came back with that very dead woman's name signed again. And this is on nominations day when the woman was already buried. And so it bothers me that GCOM doesn't, they're saying that they don't have information about fraud and forged signatures. The daughter, and if you don't mind, let me just quote part of what the daughter said. The daughter said, and this is Miss Joanna Jacob, "I'm still waiting on someone from the PPPC party to give us a proper reason as to why my parents' names are on a list without their permission." She went on to say, most importantly, why were their signatures forged? And so it is not only the dead woman whose signature was forged, it was that of the entire family. And the daughter was asking for an explanation. And so when you take that example alone, it gives us enough reason to see that the nomination process is one that is very much questionable, and it should be dealt with at GCOM, and proper solution should come out of it. And we cannot move forward to a local government election where we have dead people's name appearing as nominators on a list, and when we have persons who are not within the jurisdiction and persons who have approached GCOM, and GCOM would have dealt with them and took their names off the list because they complain of their names being forged, the signatures being forged, and the names being placed there without their authority.
If I can add quickly, no amount of spin can clear the PPP of the fraud that they were committed. The mere fact that Barrett Jagdeo would have apologized to the very woman says to all and sundry that he has admitted that his party committed fraud. So no amount of spin can take away from this that is before us today.
Thank you.
Can I ask, has the party been able to identify who are the alleged forgers of these signatures, as opposed to identifying the signatures that you say are forged?
Let me, is it Mr. Shabal?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Mr. Shabal, what you, or I should say, one must understand that the signatures are attached to a candidate's name. The form is filled out. I have that here that I can share with you immediately after the press conference. The form is filled out. The form is then approved with the signatures by a justice of peace. That person is swearing that those names that are there would have all signed by consent, and they agreed to their names being on the list, and the justice of peace now approves it so that the election commission can use it as a document so notarized by the justice of peace. And so for the party to answer whether we would not know who did the signing, but it is the representative of that list and the candidate to answer to the police once a criminal investigation is launched, so as to move the process forward to find out who signed actually.
And Council Walton, can you say what are the legal, what powers you can have legally to investigate these allegations of forgery? What legal powers do they have under the law?
GCOM is the constitutional body vested with the authority to ensure that we have free and fair elections. It therefore stands to reason that GCOM is empowered to do all of the acts necessary to ensure that we have free and fair elections. So it is not like this is a powerless organization. You will recall in 2020, the chairperson took it upon herself, well, not took it upon herself because she had the power to, but she liaised with the chief immigration officer, she liaised with the registrar of births and deaths to gather certain information. We have always maintained that this convenient stance that GCOM takes about not being able to do this and not being able to do that is contrary to the responsibility that they have under the Constitution of Guyana. And so if GCOM wants, GCOM can investigate. The problem that you have is that the current composition of GCOM makes it so politicized. And the chairman, the chairperson has demonstrated her inability to be unbiased and to be fair and to be impartial. So, that is what hamstrings GCOM and the exercise of the powers that it has under the Constitution and under the various pieces of legislation that governs the operation of GCOM.
So what we're trying to get from you, Council, is whether there is a specific act that empowers GCOM to investigate alleged forgery.
I am saying that the totality of the legal framework empowers GCOM to investigate these matters. Certainly, it must. Because if I have a duty to ensure that something is free and fair, then it means that I must have the power to ensure that I can investigate whatever is preventing it from being free and fair. So I'm saying when you take the totality of the powers that GCOM has, they certainly have the ability to investigate whether there was fraud and then hand those findings over to the authorities. They may not have the power to prosecute the fraud, but certainly they have the power to investigate it. And to tell the people of Guyana otherwise is taking us for dunces, and we are not dunces. We understand what our rights are, we understand what the Constitution says, and we understand what GCOM must do. Let me add this, Dennis, because we saw this happening in 2020, and we're not prepared to have a repeat of it. We are not prepared to have a repeat of it. We saw GCOM coming up to a certain point and then shirking their legal responsibility to ensure that we have free and fair elections. And it appears as though Claudette Singh is wanting to do that again, but we're not prepared to allow it. We can no longer stand idly by and just allow GCOM to do what it wants and use the tyranny of the numbers that they have and the fact that the chairperson is in cahoots with them to usurp the democratic will of the people. It can't happen anymore.
Aside from the justice of the peace, which may be implicated based on the comments that were just made by the vice chair, and possibly in the case of Ms. Jacob, a direct person actually challenging one of the signatures, have any persons come forward to say that their signatures have been forged, and like they made virtual complaints then in a possible criminal investigation?
But Dennis, have you not been following social media? You have.
No, I can't follow social media on this case. I'm asking the party. It is the party's institution that I want to respond.
But you are a journalist, and I'm drawing to your attention.
Counsel,
all right.
I have to ask you.
We will answer your question. Yes, we have published this information, which is why I'm very shocked that you do not have possession of it. We have published this information. We are being reached out to on a daily basis. People in Trinidad, people in the US, saying, look, I am here. I wasn't home. How is my name there? And so, yes, this information is in the public space. And yes, we have received the complaints. And yes, GCOM is fully aware of all of these incidents because we have passed this information on to them. And people have gone to the police and have made complaints.
Thank you. And one last question I want to throw before you continue. I think earlier in the opening statement, there was a remark made about not wanting the election to go ahead and effort was made to stop it. What can be done to stop the election this hour?
Look, certainly as a political party, we have to explore all of the avenues available to us. It will be irresponsible for us as a party, in the face of all of this fraud, to not make use of every legitimate avenue that we have available to us to make sure that if these elections are to take place, that they are done in a free, fair, transparent, and credible manner. And I think all of the fraud that we have uncovered has said to us, one, that our call for a clean voters list has been vindicated. Two, our call for biometrics is now vindicated so that people are confirmed to be who they say they are. I don't know what else, we need to see to understand that this is the PPPC trying to steal our democracy through fraud, and we are not prepared to allow it. And the people of Guyana must understand that they should not be prepared to allow it. As the APNU, we are prepared to provide the leadership that is necessary to guide us through this time. But we also will say to the people of Guyana that you have a duty also to speak up and to have your voices heard about these matters.
Are you ruling in another round of legal action to possibly stop the elections?
We are exploring, as is our right, to every avenue to ensure that we have free, fair, credible local government elections. So all of it is on the table. None of it is off of the table.
Thank you. I think
Please.
Mr. Adam,
Okay,
yes, go ahead.
yes. We have spoken a lot about the fraud, the fraudulent signatures and all of that. We've also spoken about the clean voters list. Now, this list had to be disaggregated to the particular local government areas and all of that. So it's, in some ways, it's going to be different from the list you used at election time. Have there been irregularities on this list? For example, does it contain the name of dead people? Have you been able to see whether people who are not normally resident in Guyana appearing in that list? I mean, I don't know. Did we look at all those things?
Mr. Adam, the coalition as a whole complained about this prior to us reaching nominations day. GCOM, as you are aware, had to be forced to go through the process of claims and objections, which then brought about the PLV, preliminary list of voters, and then now having the registered voters list. During that period, the APNU had scrutineers throughout the country at all the local authority areas. I personally sat at that period of claims and objection. In one local authority area, and I'll narrow down to constituency, in one constituency in the Union Narstigide NDC, constituency 3, we found approximately over 200 and something persons, ranging from those who are not in the local authority area, those who are dead, and those who migrated and are permanent residents or citizens in the United States of America and the wider diaspora. During that period, we took the information to the Guyana Elections Commission. The Guyana Elections Commission served on those persons who we would have objected to to have them appear to an hearing at the commission. During the hearing, all those names that we objected to, they were dismissed as being for lack of evidence, in as much as the people didn't turn up. And to be specific, a minister who is a current sitting minister, his sister died over 10 years ago. And we challenged GCOM to send a letter to her residence and ask her to come to the commission to present herself. GCOM did just that. And on the day of the hearing, GCOM said to us, through its returning officer, that we cannot remove the name of this woman because we don't have sufficient evidence. You went to the woman's residence, you delivered a letter, you could not find her, she did not appear at the hearing. We tell you, and persons can also attest that this woman is dead. As a matter of fact, we have produced a number of death certificates during the 2020 elections, which they have in their possession, that these people are dead. And GCOM still allowed us to reach this point where we are at nominations day, or rather past nominations day, and the dead is still on the list, the migrated is still on the list. Those living outside of the local authority areas will still be allowed to come and vote within that area, even though they are now residents of Georgetown and other parts of the country. They come back to Borbis and vote. And so clearly the answer to the question is that yes, we still have persons who are dead and those outside of the local authority area. In as much as we had a claims and objection process, GCOM did nothing to fix the list. So the list simply was broken up from the normal list that is being used at general election into the local authority areas, the list to suit constituency, to suit local government, but then it is the same sets of names or set of names that appear on that list.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Please, if you permit, just one question outside of the basic thing, if you allow it.
I think today we should be dealing with matters that pertain to local government, election, or anything within that circle.
All right. You will make me local government in this. All right.
We'll have another press conference, Adam, to deal with the other issues. We'll have another press conference to deal with the other issues. But today we want to focus heavy on the issues surrounding local government elections.
I can understand. I can give you a briefing so when we meet you can talk about it. I wanted to know the reaction to the judge's ruling yesterday. But as you tell me, can't ask it, I ain't gonna ask it.
We'll deal with it in a subsequent
We'll deal with it in a subsequent
press.
All right, any other
conference.
questions? All right. I do not see, I know, I don't see any other hands raised. I know Mr. Shabal probably has stuck there, as it is sometimes. All right. So with no other questions being asked today, I would like to thank the members of the media for joining today's press conference, and to our viewers online as well. Thank you, and do have a wonderful afternoon.